in order to hide that.
Yeah.
So we would ask them all.
Good evening, everyone. So just so everyone knows, tonight we have technically 3 separate meetings, so you will get 3 opportunities to have visitors' correspondence. We do ask that you kind of keep it to the meeting that we are working on at that point in time. So our first meeting tonight is going to be the budget hearing and tax request hearing. So Chrissy, can you call that meeting, or I'll call that meeting to order. Can you roll call, please?
John?
Here.
Melanie?
Here.
Jake?
Here.
Linda?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I have proof of publication in front of me. I need a motion to approve the agenda for the budget hearing and tax request hearing.
So
Second. Vote, please. All in favor? All right, visitors' correspondence. Anyone desiring to speak on any item or issue not on the agenda or on any item on the agenda that does not include a public hearing may do so. It shall be limited to 3 minutes. Person should identify themselves by name and address. Person speaking should not expect the council to engage in back and forth dialogue regarding their comments unless an agenda item includes a public hearing. No person may speak during the business portion of the meeting, provided, however, persons speaking during a public hearing are limited to between 5 and 20 minutes. The public is advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the council chamber. 1 copy of all reproducible written material to be discussed at this meeting is available for examination or copying. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the budget and tax request outside of the public hearing parts? Okay, so we will go into the 25-26 budget hearing. Kent, are you gonna come present for us?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me, I think. Last time I had a crowd this big, it was clear back when I first started doing this, and we had to raise bond taxes quite a bit to pay the bond payments, and there was quite a crowd here then wondering why we were doing all that. But so this one, budget hearing here is really just to go over the total budget, which I've been over with the council. We prepared on spreadsheets that kind of give a summary of what the budgets are by fund, and then we pull that in total. I don't know what information is available to everybody. When I look at those recaps, what I really look at is the 24-25 budget and how that looks like that estimated year will end up. When we get said and done with that, it sure looks like our expenditures will be about $9.5 million, and that we'll end up with about a $14 million cash balance is where we'll end up for the year. The biggest money, of course, is sitting in our sales tax fund. That has $6.6 million in it, and that's where we think we'll end about there. And then we still have quite a bit of money in our water and sewer funds, our utility funds there. Our general fund is obviously the one that gets cash poor at times. It just kind of depends on the time of year when that comes around. So when we go in to do the 24-25 budget, and we start with that $14 million, we end up with about a $2.9 million total in property tax requests, and that includes the bond fund, which is about $561,000. That bond fund levy jumps around a little bit just as bonds are due. We can only levy the amount of the bonds that are due that are coming into the next fiscal year. And then once we like to try to get it at a level point and then just keep that levy fairly level as we go along, at least the dollar request. The levy will vary a little bit just based on the evaluation and how that's jumping around. We look at our other revenue and we get our expenses in there. Expenses are estimated at about 11 million. So that is up a little bit higher from the 9.7. We do provide for a little bit of inflation and cushion, I guess if you want to call it, in some of the budget numbers, because we don't want to overexpend the budget where we have to amend it. And so we do allow for that when we're doing budgeting. The other big thing we do in budgeting is we put in capital outlay dollars in order to get cash reserves down. By law, your cash reserves can only budget it at 50% of your expenditures. And so in order to get the cash down to that level, sometimes we have to put in a capital outlay budget of expense that we know we're probably not going to expend. Now, I know in your public works area, the street, and down in the water fund, we've got some huge capital outlay items that are budgeted to be paid for with debt financing. And whether those projects actually get completed or not, it kind of depends on timing of everything. But I think in the public works area, it's about $12 million is what we budgeted in there. And in the water fund area, it's $14 million. So there's two big capital outlay projects that are included in this budget, okay, that are funded through debt. And then we did budget for quite a bit of transfers out of the sales tax fund, and that's to help fund those utility projects. So about $3.6 million, we did budget to come out of sales tax to go down into the water sewer area. If we did all that and followed this budget, which is, like I said, a lot of times it has a extra amount of expenditures in the budget, it would bring your cash balance down to $6.8 million, which would be really 60% of your total expenditures. But because I can exclude bond fund and sales tax from that computation, it gets you below that 50% required level of expenditures or cash balance that you can have based on your operating expenditures. So that's what we included. When we look at allocation of how we allocate these property taxes, the last couple of years, they've been 14% general, 28% street, 46% police, and 12% library. Due to the valuation and how the numbers have come out, we've been able to reduce the police allocation to 40% instead of 46. And the general went up to 20. So the general can act more as a banker for some of the other funds and maybe get its cash reserves to an acceptable level. And so that's the allocation is going to change of how those property taxes are allocated. Then the other big thing in your budget is the lid computation. I mean, for years and years, the lid computation was based on restricted funds. And what it basically said is if you had money coming from state receipts like highway allocation, motor vehicle taxes, other sources of revenue that's coming in, including sales tax, that you would have to reduce your property taxes. That was kind of part of the computation of restricted funds. You can only have so many, and those other state receipts counted. And so then you'd have this unused budget authority that you could carry over every year if you didn't take enough property taxes to fill that gap in, which we did. We were pretty good about that. We never took the property taxes we were allowed to take based on that lid. You add another lid that's based on the levy limit. It's a 45-cent levy limit. And I'd have to go back a number of years, we were at that 45 cents. And today you're quite a bit less than that. But our unused budget authority was, building up to about $600,000. Well, now the new law came in. And this new law has gotten rid of restricted funds, and it's gone to what they call tax request authority. And they totally changed how the computation is. There is no restricted funds anymore. Now you get an inflation percent that the Auditor of Public Account establishes and tells you what it is, and then you get a growth allowance based on the county treasurer and what happened with your growth. And that's all you get. There is no restricted funds anymore. Now, there are some allowances, exceptions, like approved bonds, because we know bond levies can change based on bonding needs. So that is an exception from this computation of allowable tax request authority. And so this year, your tax request authority, the carryover, they just give us a different number, and it's 5% of the property taxes that we did the prior year. So your unused authority that carries into this year is $129,000. Well, of course, on our unrestricted, the old method, we had $600,000 of unused budget authority. That just goes away. So you don't get your $600,000. Now it's $129,000. But along with the 5.7 and your growth rate per the county treasurer is 13.39%. So you have a very nice growth rate, and that's because obviously valuation's gone up. And that's new valuation. That's not revaluation. That's new valuation that's gone up. So you brought in that much new valuation, so you get an extra $346,000 of tax authority that you could request if you wanted to. Along with the 5.17 that the state auditor has said that is the inflation rate. So those are our two increases. And then we have an allowable decrease for the approved bonds. So going through that process, based on their budget, what we're asking for dollar-wise, we have plenty of budget authority, tax requests. I've got extra by $500,000. So I've got quite a bit extra. Now, that whole amount is not gonna carry over. They only let me carry over 5% again. So that's gonna get totally reduced. So when we go in and we look at our tax request, the property taxes from last year was 2.6 million. This year it's 2.9 million. So we're up about 12%. And a lot of that's due to that real growth we had. And so we brought in some more dollars due to that growth. We're about a 12% increase. Our real growth that the state allows us is 19.6%. Plus, if you added 2% on there, that's what would require the joint public hearing. We're clearly under that, 21% versus 12%. So we don't have to have a joint public hearing. That's why we're not required to attend that. And so with that 2.9 in there, and our allowable amount was 3.8, of course, that has the excludable bonds of 500,000. So you do all that goofy math, and we're still probably 300,000 under the tax request that we could have had under the tax authority, and we're a lot more under that, under what we could have had under the real growth. So in both cases, we're well under the allowable amount under the lids. So that's really the budget itself, kind of a high-level recap, I think.
Council, any comments or questions for Ken? Ken, 2009, just so you know, the 45 cents.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone? Okay.
Couple questions, Ken.
Yeah.
When we looked at this, it's a 13% increase in our operating budget. It's a 37+% increase in the non-capital items aspect of this budget, which includes a number of odds and ends in the non-capital section that Lori laid out for us. What would you just give some perspective on how we look as a city? And right now, at least at the outset, we're looking at a 6% increase in the levy. And then can you give us the bond levy increase as well?
Yeah, so on the levy side of it, and I know that's the second hearing, but that's okay. So on the levy side of it, we're actually looking at a 6.4% increase in the valuation. So our valuation went up 6.4, but our actual levy for the general fund is going down.
Okay.
Less than, 0.2%, but it's still going down, okay? So our actual levy for general fund is going down. Our bond fund levy, we've got caught in this scaling up of our bond payments. And so sure, a year ago, our bond levy was 5.2 cents. This year, it's got to go to 7.2 to meet the debt requirements. So there is a 37% increase in that bond levy, which is about $20 per $100,000 evaluation. So it's going from 5.2 cents to 7.2. So the bond fund levy is going to take a jump there based on the current debt schedule and where we're at on that. As far as having a 7.2% or 7.2 cent levy for a bond is not unusual. I just did an SID and their bond levy is 12 cents. I just did another one, it was 6.5. So there's a lot of bond levies out there that can vary from, you get these huge valuation places and some of their bond levies are 2 cents, and you get the other ones and they can get up there a little ways. From a city standpoint, 30-cent levy, you were at 45 8 years ago, and not even that long ago, but we were down to, we've dropped it consistently for the last number of years. Now this year, it's actually going to be a tad less than last year, the levy itself. So, and even though sure last year was up from 26 cents, it went up to 30. 30-cent levy for a city, I think you look around, you're not high at all. Fremont, I think, is similar. I think they're right at 30. There's a lot of places, and I do a number of villages that 45. They hit the max. They need the money to operate. You're a big enough city where you don't have to be at the max anymore. Your valuation's high enough.
When we look at 22 or 23 and 24 versus 24 and 25, and we look at the actual growth rates, I think the number that came in at the actual side was 19.6 this year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In 23, 24 was 22.5, 22.55. Do you have any thought on the future growth rate of the city? And I'm asking that in terms of what we can project for revenues over the next 1, 3, 5
Yeah,
years.
you think the inflation rate's probably gonna be, still up there a little ways. So I think that rate, as far as goes to your budget growth, is gonna be there. Your city's unique a little bit. Your growth rate's gonna be, different because of all the valuation you have going on. And I don't know the timing of when all that comes on board, but you have these huge valuations which give you these huge growth rates. And your growth rates are much higher than other places I worked on. This is the highest one. And it's just because your valuation jumps. So it's really hard for me to predict that because I don't know where I'd have to do a little, it wouldn't be that you couldn't do it, because you can go do the study and figure out when those things are coming and how your valuations, and take kind of a normal increase in valuations. I don't think, from talking to county assessors, we do the audit for a couple counties, so I kind of look at some of that stuff. I don't think you're gonna see that massive growth that they've had the last 3-4 years, where every subdivision's getting a 20% increase, and it's been higher in some cases. I don't think you're gonna see that as much anymore. It's gonna tone down a little bit. There's been some really large revaluations, and so, trying to get things at quote fair market value, to get that assessed value up closer to that, or at least to 90% of that, 95. So my projection, if I had a crystal ball, I'd say overall revaluations are still gonna be going up. They're just not gonna be as extreme. And I would think in your case, you're gonna continue to get some real growth because new valuation coming on the roll.
Kent, if I can just clarify, mainly for the people in the audience, the reason, as you alluded to, for the real growth is the TIF lots coming off TIF.
Correct.
We have two subdivisions, Blue Water and Mallard, that were set up as what's called a rolling TIF, where when the building permit is issued, then the taxes are divided the next year for 15 years. So it rolls out until everything's developed. And as everyone in the room knows, Blue Water and Mallard all have houses in them. The valuation is there. And Andrea, what's the number on the spreadsheet you did? We have monies coming in the next, starting in 2 years, I believe, on Mallard, and then going out 20-some years. At today's valuations, it's very significant every year, is it not?
Every year it's very significant, and this is just with using 2024 assessed values, but with just those subdivisions in the next 20 years or so, we've got about 375 million coming in.
I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that would be close to $500 million with inflation adjustments and so on and so forth. You should send that to Kent, by the way.
Yeah, that takes your 780 million evaluation and kind of doubles it. It takes 50% more.
It's a very significant and beneficial thing for the city.
Yeah, so it's long term, when you look at those growth percentages and what's going on with it, and your ability to get tax revenues on there at the same time, keep your levies reasonable, it gives you a lot of options there.
If I'm working through this right, there's 24 million in capital improvements, about 11, I think you alluded to 11.5 million in operating expenses, which gets us most of the way to the mid-30s number. Of the capital improvements side of things, 10 million is set aside for the park. That's buried, if you're looking at some of the other numbers, I believe that's buried in streets.
Yeah, it's in with public works, I guess we call it, yeah.
And what would be the net effect if we pulled a substantial amount of that 10 million out of that budget so we don't have the authority to spend that?
Well, the only negative side to that is if you wanted to spend it and you don't have the budget authority, you'd have to amend your budget. There is no negative impact on your overall budget. We would reduce the revenue side and the expense side by the same number. That's why a lot of these capital projects, I encourage boards that if they think there's a chance they're going to do it, to go ahead and budget for it. doesn't hurt to have it in the budget. It doesn't increase taxes, it doesn't increase anything. It just makes a percent looks higher that you gotta explain. You know, that's why the percent, that's why I always separate capital outlay, capital improvements, debt service from operating expenses. I wanna know what operating expenses are doing as a taxpayer, as a person that's looking. Capital outlays generally has its own funding source. And then you have to really look at where your debt servicing is at, where, you know, what would that look like if you actually did this project? And, you know, how that levy and how that tax would impact would be. But at least it keeps your operating budget out of that picture. So budgeting for that as a revenue and an capital outlay item has really no impact on your general budget.
Okay. And then the operating expense increase was about 9.5 million to 11.5 million.
And it's a bump.
Okay. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, you'd have to go into each individual area there. I know that, I'll tell you right, you did some really late adjustments to that you did some through departments that I did not put in the budget. I didn't have time to get them in before the publications, but it was adjustments to the expenditures that was neutral. So you know, overall the expenditure was, so when you look at those internal sheets that you did the last week before the budget, there may have been some decrease in the expenditures for from based on what I have on the 24 or 25, 26 budget. So, you know, I'm showing that 11,000,005, 13 and 9.4. So you're up about $2 million, which is, you know, almost 20%. It's pretty good increase. But you look at where is that up at? And the biggest thing that up is community development or that area. You know, there's $4 million in there in the budget. Well, I had 3.9 in the prior year, so it's not like it's a huge difference, but it is. Keno, I had 150 last year. I put in 300 this year. So there's another big one. Your operating area, the big jump in that is in the public works and street area. There's a lot of street projects in there that are under expenses instead of under capital outlay. And that, you know, so I had a budget of 540 and now it's $1,000,001. So there's 600,000 of that increase is just in that one area. And general has a bit in there too. I mean, it's going from 1,000,002 to 1,000,005. So there's quite a bit of increase in that general. I would have to go into the detail to see what those line items were.
Sure.
I don't recall. Yeah, those are the main funds are just what the police is, you know, has an increase of about 100,000. It's not huge relative to the picture. Library, every fund though, looking down here, every fund area has probably at least a 10% budget increase. And there's probably things in there line by line that has to be. Certainly salaries and all that is part of the picture. I know just from the outworld that we work in, that we work with people and companies we work on, you know, they've had to incur significant increases in payroll expenses in order to maintain employees, including at our firm. So it's, you know, I understand a 10% increase in that area easy. Probably surprises that low, you know, if it was. So, yeah, there are some increases in there, but you'd have to dig in the detail to really get the line items there.
So one of the things we found agreement on was that we were going to spend on water and streets. And so you'll see that that's reflected in there. The other things we found agreement on was proposed $500,000, roughly $550,000 in cuts to the budget that we hope got communicated back. I know Lori communicated those, but those were for specific items related to pool expense next year, a payloader that was slated for public works for nearly $300,000, marquees at $225,000, so on and so forth. And we agreed as a council to trim all of that out and say, we want to, if anything, it should be reallocated to streets and water.
Correct.
But the other area that we challenged the budget in, or we looked at the budget, was in that 10 million in park improvements. You know, we've already done one phase. It's a 3-phase improvement, and so you know, giving this body the ability to spend tax dollars and thinking we can spend it better than our tax than the individuals who earned the money is a farce. So I mean, that's typical government. How do we take that number down?
Well, you know, right now, the way it's budgeted for is purely through debt financing. So it's not affecting your property tax rate from a general fund standpoint. So the way, right now it's a budget, it's not reality. How you take it down is not make it reality. I mean, that's really ultimately the end answer on, this is a budget. And budgets can be underspent. They don't have to be met or overspent. And the thought is anything you want to maintain at a lower level or do better than what you are is underexpend your budget. Don't spend what's in here. And same way can be said of the capital outlay. Capital outlay is intentionally done that way by most people that budget. And it's because we want to have the authority there, but know that our council is going to do it in the most responsible way. And, but it gives you the authority. And not that you couldn't get the authority afterwards, it'd just be more paperwork and more administrative stuff to do.
Any other comments or questions for Ken? Okay, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on the budget hearing? Okay, we'll close that public hearing. So then the next is setting the final tax request, which Kent already went over.
Yeah, I can take just a moment for that, just to kind of remind us at the levy hearing, what the levy hearing is about. So the budget hearing is really the meat of the budget and all the numbers and everything that comes up, including the tax dollar amount that helps fund this budget. So then you convert that tax dollar request to a levy. And there are, like I said, levy limits is 45 cents. And if you have a joint interlocal agreement, you can actually go to 50 cents, which I've had some do that. So we're well below the 40. So our current, the current valuation is $780 million. It was 733. It went up 6.4%. The tax request for the general fund last year was 2.2 million. This year's 2.4. So it's up 6.4%. When you divide that by the valuation, you have a levy that was 30.966 cents. Now it's 30.91 cents. So it's a 0.2% decrease in the levy for the general fund, which basically saves you $1 per $100,000 of valuation. If you go to the bond fund, the tax requests in the bond fund the last 2 years were right at $388,000 because that was our debt funding requirement. This year, it's $567,000 is our debt funding requirement. So that is what we levy. We try to keep enough cash flow in that bond fund to be able to make those bond funds when the bond payments, when they come due, they're due twice a year. And so the cash flow is critical to keep money in there ahead of time because we only get our tax dollars twice a year. So we do keep cash flow to fund that 567. Of course, we had to build up some cash flow because we had to go from 388 to 567. So we did build that up. If you divide that by the valuation numbers I already said, the levy was 5.29 cents. Now it's 7.26 cents. So it's a 37% increase in the rate. And that is about $20 per 100,000 evaluation. If I recall on the future debt payments, they go up slightly again. And I think they eventually hit 700,000 if I remember right. So it's 567. So we'll see a little bit more increase that. Although if the valuation continues at the pace, your levy may not even go up. It may stay very similar if we only look at a $100,000 increase in the debt payments instead of a $200,000 increase. So that is the levies.
Any comments or questions for Kent on those? Okay, we'll open that public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wants to talk about the final tax request? All right, we will close that public hearing. Thanks, Kent.
Any need for me to stay around? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will move into the regular city council agenda. So we will now call that meeting officially to order. Okay, roll call, please.
John?
Here.
Melanie?
Here.
Jay?
Here.
Linda?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. We are not going to do the Pledge of Allegiance again. We already did that. So I do have proof of publication in front of me. Visitors' correspondence. Anyone desiring to speak on any item or issue not on the agenda or any item on the agenda that does not include a public hearing may do so. It shall be limited to 3 minutes. Persons should identify themselves by name and address. Person speaking should not expect the council to engage in back and forth dialogue regarding their comments. Unless an agenda item includes a public hearing, no person may speak during the business portion of the meeting, provided, however, persons speaking during the public hearing are limited to between 5 and 20 minutes. Vote is advised that a copy of the Opens Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the council chamber, and 1 copy of all reproducible written material to be discussed at this meeting is available for examination or copying. Is there any visitors' correspondence you would like to speak?
Excuse me. My name is John Dabney, 133 East Alexander. I currently have with me a public nuisance letter on our property, and we'd like to comply to that letter. We're working on it as I speak. I have things going in to improve the property so it's not a nuisance, and I'm just asking, do we have the time and ability to approval to improve the property so it's not a public nuisance anymore?
So we would have to look at the details of it and go through our normal appeal and regular process. So Christy, can you make sure you get his information and we can contact you? Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, I would also like to note we have 2 different groups of correspondence attached to the agenda, entered into public record residents from several different residents from Flatwater regarding Champion Shore. So that is entered into public record on here as well. All right, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second, vote please. All in favor? Need a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve it. Vote please. All in favor? All right, number 8, DC West Student Council consideration and approval of street closures for homecoming parade on September 19th, 2024. Jenna?
Hi, James Knott, 3814 North 265th Court. I'm the high school principal, and we are planning on having our homecoming parade on September 19th. The parade would be the usual route, north on East Street, and then back around on Pine in front of the school. The parade starts at 12:45. They would probably start lining up around 11. We'd like to ask for permission to do that again this year.
Okay, anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second, vote please. All in favor? Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
All right, number 9, Arbor Care Center, Valhaven Garden, Teresa McLaury, St. John's Pastoral Minister, wishes to create awareness within the council of the garden project and to invite the community to participate by assisting with planting or donating their own plants.
Good evening. I'm Teresa McLaury. I'm the pastoral minister at St. John, the Evangelist Catholic Church at 307 East Meek Street. And I'm here tonight. For many years, I've done community gardens. In 1999, I went through the Master Gardener program, and we did community gardens all over the city. We did one at our church this year. And every month I go to Valhaven Arbor Care Center to play Bible bingo with the residents. And oftentimes I give them plants, and they love gardening, they love plants. And one of the ladies commented the other day that she looks outside and sees dead bushes. Well, it's not anybody's fault. They were full of bagworms. And so we eliminated those bushes, and they all wanted to have a garden. So we decided that with the help of St. John's and some community volunteers, we are doing a garden there, and they deserve it. And so many of the residents are talking about the gardens that they used to have at their homes. And fall is a wonderful time to divide your perennials. And they all want irises, peonies, and they're so excited. So this Saturday, we're going to start at 10 o'clock, and we're going to work most of the day. And then we're going to complete the project on Saturday, the 27th. And if any of you have anything that you'd like to bring, any garden items, it can be shovels, it can be hard things. It doesn't have to be plant material. But if you have anything you want to divide and you want to help, the residents are wonderful. The staff is great. You always see the staff engaging with the residents every single time. Some facilities I go into, you don't see anyone. They're beautiful, but you don't see anyone. And so I'm very honored to be able to be there. We minister to them also with sacraments, but they're just wonderful people, and it'd be nice if you could all visit them. Todd is here. He's the administrator. If any of you have any questions, he's great too. So thank you so much. Do you have any questions at all? Any gardening questions? Thank you.
Should somebody contact you directly?
Yes, and I have pictures of gardens that I've done. I have business cards. And one of the ladies, this is sedum, and it's a perennial, and it spreads. And so what they're doing is they're putting them into little containers so that we're planting them on the 27th. And they're also painting rocks of their deceased family members, friends, a heart, a poem, anything they want. And then we're going to create a mosaic and put that outside. And ideally, I used to do garden walks. And ideally, on Mig Street, we will do a garden walk next year. So, thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you. All right.
Well, lighthearted.
I do have a question, and this is just something that popped to my head, so if I'm out of the line, correct me if I'm wrong.
Not for me, for someone else.
When we were going over the budget, and there was something in that area that we were discussing, is there anything that we can use from that towards this? Or is that, no? Okay, just thought I'd ask. Okay, number 10, street sign request. Consideration and approval of the public works street sign request for no through traffic sign at Park and Alexander Street and yield sign on North and southbound Park Streets to yield to Livingston. Tim, do you want to say something about this? Sorry, I didn't see where you went.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's for the new street that got put in on Park. Just so it's outlining the new intersection at Whittingham and Park Street, with Whittingham being a through street. I talked to Greg earlier, they already have it for stop signs where the yield signs are. I didn't know that. I took this as a recommendation from the police department. So either one would work for me.
So we don't necessarily need the yield sign because it's going to be a stop sign? Okay. So then the request would be for the no through traffic sign.
And that is on Alexander Park. And that is a recommendation of the police department also, just to discourage people from using the park as a shortcut.
And what sign is there now? There's a sign there now, right?
There's a no outlet sign.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Tim? I would entertain a motion to approve the no through traffic sign at Park and Alexander Streets. Second, vote please. All in favor? All right, number 11, capital facilities consideration and appointment of director to replace Cameron Gales. You don't have any ideas on who they would like to appoint to this?
Well, my first question is Capital Facilities Corp., is that the Valley City Leasing Corp.?
Yes.
Okay. I was just confused why you didn't list it as that.
I think this is the official name of it, right?
City Valley Leasing Corporation.
Jeff, is there anything in the article about who it has to be, what group or type of person?
No, and obviously this was precipitated by Cameron's resignation when he left the city of Valley to take a job at Carter Lake. He was a director, and the bylaws of the leasing corporation state that in the event of the death or resignation of the director, the city may designate a successor. And if the city shall designate a successor, the remaining director shall take all actions may be requested by the city to cause to be appointed as a director of such person. So there would be some corporate documents that would do that. But the council gets to designate who would take Karen's place as a director of the leasing corporation.
And as a condition of his employment, that's what made him a director. Did he officially resign as a director from this as well?
It was my understanding that he did.
Okay.
Christie, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just to confirm, he was the secretary and the director, right?
Yeah, and the directors then will appoint the officers now.
Okay.
Whatever offices are vacated by his resignation, the directors will fill.
I do have a recommendation, just for myself, is Valley resident Sue Moore to this corporation.
Do you have the resume for Sue?
I do not.
Would Sue accept this?
I think so. I don't think she's here tonight. That's just my recommendation.
I second your recommendation.
So is that in form of a motion maybe?
Again.
And I will
Oh.
second it.
Well, you guys can make the motion
Yeah,
first.
Make the motion.
Okay, I make a motion for Sue Poor for the City of Valley Leasing Corporation. Is that for that as a director?
Can you give us more detail on Sue?
I don't know exactly how long she's lived in Valley, but what I would consider a longtime Valley resident. In my opinion, a great family. That's kind of all I want to speak to her for that, for Sue.
Does she know what the Valley Leasing Corp is?
I wouldn't know if her understanding, but she would consider, I don't want to give like a definitive answer because I don't really know.
What do you think the qualifications for somebody joining the Valley Leasing Corp are?
I will say one of the things I personally appreciate about Sue Porter, she has a very strong financial background and she understands numbers really well. So the fact that our city leasing corporation deals a lot with bond issues and stuff like that, she would be a prime candidate.
What is her background?
She just has like a really strong accounting background. I don't have it with me. She did email it to me. I was trying to pull it up, but I can't find it. But she didn't email it to me, but someone gave it to me and I was really impressed with her financial background. But I certainly cannot locate it right now. I was trying to find it.
So it would seem that it'd be wise to have maybe Sue's resume, maybe a cover letter for us to take a look at as a council to make sure, and anybody else for that matter, if there's others that we want to bring to this.
Question about that though. What was Cameron's actual dated last date? What was his last day? Just to confirm it. Wasn't it August?
August 19th?
His last date of employment was August 19th. Was it
Yeah.
different? I didn't see the resignation from the leasing corporation.
Since I don't have access to my file folders, I'll have to give you that. Sorry.
Per the bylaws, it says if the city does not designate a successor within 30 days after the death or resignation of any city, the remaining directors shall appoint a successor. So I really would try not to extend this any further because then we'll lose our gap. But I have personally had conversations in regards to this reference. You should be able to I can get to if you're on the newer Wi-Fi. Not Valley Guest, just Valley. You should be able to get there. If anything, we'd have to make some type of special meeting for this so that we're within the 30 days.
There's an alternative in there, Melanie. What's the alternative again?
What do you mean, like what the bylaws say?
Yes, otherwise,
It just says article under the succession, it says if the city does not designate a successor within 30 days after the death or resignation of any city, the remaining directors shall appoint a successor. And the remaining ones I have as John Batcher, president, Jeff Farnham, vice president, and then Christy Donemeyer as treasurer.
So you take the council wouldn't be able to have a say then?
I would be okay with taking your recommendations on getting her resume and having her present if we can conduct a special meeting that meets within the 30 days that Cameron Rails left City of Valley. I can agree with that.
And we need to find this date of resignation for the director, make sure it's the same. Like I said, I didn't ever see that.
Well, I know we terminated on the 20th of August, and I thought I saw his resignation for that, but I could have that confused with his resignation from employment. So he didn't give a resignation from a director position? I thought he did, but like I said, I could have that confused with his resignation from employment. I tried to find it. Well, we need that first, right?
Right, because technically, if we don't have anything in the articles and the bylaws that he was a director because of his employment and they ended at the same time, he would have to officially resign. I said, I didn't see that, but that doesn't mean anything.
Okay, Bobby said he did not resign, he just talked to him.
Okay. So then as of right now, Cameron is still a director who did not resign from his director position of the leasing corporation.
So why don't we talk to him? I'm sure he wants to resign since he's no longer here, and we'll get a resignation and have it dated so that 30 days is within the time for the next regular council meeting. Okay, that way we don't have a special.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before that, can we get Sue's resume or cover letters, both? Thank you.
So we have a pending motion. I think we need a motion to table.
We want to make a motion, we table this?
I make the motion to table it.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor? All right, number 12, resolution 2025-34. Consideration and approval of setting date for recall election for Mayor Cindy Grove and City Council President John Batcher. Anyone have any comments or questions on this resolution? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2025-34, which is approval of setting the date for recall election for Mayor Cindy Grove and City Council President John Batcher.
We just have a couple of comments as we move into this. Obviously, this is a big step for the city. It's a big step for the Douglas County Election Commission. I don't think they've done this in the past. There's the signatures have been gathered, just so everybody knows where we sit. Signatures have been gathered to then take us to this, where the council has the opportunity to do a recall election. For me, I'm sitting here saying that I wouldn't change a thing about any of the votes I've made over the last 3 years, and basically telling all of you and anybody watching that I would double down on all of those votes, and that I would double down on the fact that we need to be spending on water, infrastructure, we need to be spending on streets and infrastructure, and we need to be spending on a city pool in some way, shape, or form at some location. But what we don't need to be spending on is the frivolous items that a large budget allows us to spend on. So when we look at a budget of $46 million, and you're saying we're going to give the city discretion of that budget, I'm telling you, I think that's a terrible idea as a taxpayer. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No public
What does that fit in number 12?
public comments.
So What I'm telling you is,
Where does it start in number 12?
sir, you're welcome to vote to recall both the mayor and I. That's your prerogative. We live in a democratic society. We live in a constitutional republic, and we respect those things. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you that there wouldn't be any difference whatsoever in the last 3 years, and that it would be voting against wasteful spending and for all those other items. So I want you to know that.
All right, I entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-34. Approval of setting date for recall election for Mayor Cindy Grove and City Council President John Batcher.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Vote please. 3 in favor, 1 against. All right, ordinance number 839. Consideration and approval of salaries of the employees of the city of Valley. So this is an ordinance that we do annually. So last year we switched it so that we do salary increases in conjunction with the fiscal year and the budget. It's a lot easier for budget purposes. So in conjunction with that, we need to change the salary ranges on some things. So let's see, we added in, police chief did go up a little bit to make the ranges consistent with the other department heads. We added a police sergeant, so we would have the ability to create a sergeant position if needed. And then library staff also went up in conjunction with the budget request for the library. That was the one thing, right, Christy?
Yes.
Any comments or questions on that? Just a couple comments coming out of budget. Our budget meetings, and the council will remember this. I made a proposal that we should be taking down the 37% increase in non-capital items. Some of those items that were in the non-capital section were a payloader, the marquees, cemetery improvements, pool expense, and one of those other items is salary for elected officials. I asked that those be removed and eliminated, and that was met with Linda saying she wanted to keep it because she had legal bills. Jake saying, I'm good with that, and Melanie looking through the budget to find some other light items, and when we found out we were covered from a expense standpoint and a revenue standpoint, that she was good with that as well. So just for the record, I don't think this body deserves to be paid for the work being done.
Just wanted to add to that. Thank you so much, John Batcher. I just wanted to add a few things. The reason why I was uncertain whether this is even something that we could do, and I would love Farnham and Griffin's expert advice on this. Nebraska State Statute 17612 prevents elected officials' compensation from being altered during their current term. Specifically, the salary of any elected officer in the city of second class or village shall not be increased or diminished during the term for which he or she has been elected. Under 17612, you cannot reduce or eliminate any elected official's pay during the term they're serving. Compensation levels must remain consistent until the term ends. That means even if you as council president were advocating all elected officials get their annual pay, the city council would not have the statutory authority to actually lower or remove compensation for current officials until the next terms conclude. So my understanding is the next election is slated for November 2026. Newly elected city council members would typically assume office in December 2026. Any ordinance or statutory aiming to adjust compensation, such as removing pay, can be proposed now, but it cannot apply to the current term. Such a change can only take effect starting the newly elected city officials in December 2026. I mean, any legal advice behind that would be great, but that's just what I found.
This is the first I've heard of this even being an issue. If those are the statutes, then what you said is correct. If you're putting the statutes accurately, which I assume you are, then that's sure what it sounds like.
So my motion would be to take that next term to 0 because that will be in the budget for 2026.
Yeah, I would reference the city attorneys to that before I would agree to anything like that.
Well, I'm gonna abstain from voting on that because I'm not going to run in the election cycle, and I'm not gonna make that decision for anyone else.
Wouldn't that be
You
pertinent
could
to,
never make it for your own term, though.
no,
I know, that's why I'm not making it for anybody else.
and this
Right,
would
but you couldn't either way. So even if, like, the next person couldn't either if that statute is accurate. So saying wouldn't make a difference, because it's set for you to vote on something that happens for the next person. That's the way the statute is designed.
I think this is a great conversation for the next budget meeting that we do in September of 2026, coming up on that next election year. Because I don't know who else is interested in running, and I don't want to make a decision that affects anyone else in our constituents.
I mean, it would only benefit our constituents because our tax requests would go down. Okay, so with that on the table then, is there any comments or questions about the rest of the salaries for the employees? All right. For the salary ranges, yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve it.
It's an ordinance, we don't make motions. Thank you. So ordinance 829, I would introduce an ordinance to introduce, a motion to introduce ordinance 829 on the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second introducing ordinance 839 on the first reading. Is there any other discussion? Christie, will you read the short title, please?
Ordinance number 839, an ordinance of the city of Valley, Nebraska to amend ordinance number 829 relating to the salaries of the employees of the city of Valley, Nebraska, providing for an effective date of this ordinance, providing for a severability clause, and providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith.
Vote, please. All in favor? Is there a desire to suspend the rules and pass the ordinance on the second and third reading?
So moved.
Second.
Vote, please. All in favor? All right, ordinance 840, adopting the budget statement and annual appropriation bill. So this is actually doing the ordinance to adopt the budget that Kent went over. Is there any other discussion on this?
Want to make sure that that budget reflects the cuts that we chose to make as a council, that total just under 550,000. And I would like to pull the capital improvements budget down by 6 million.
So, maybe Christie, you will know this better. Lori is unfortunately out ill, and so we couldn't have asked her. But I believe in the detail spreadsheet, she made the changes that you all requested at last week's meeting. However, that doesn't ultimately change the overall budget numbers, but it definitely changes the detailed line items for the department heads to use. Is that accurate, Chrissy?
I believe so.
But of course, nothing would have been changed for the capital outlay.
Reducing the capital improvements capital number.
Is there any discussions on that? If no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to introduce ordinance 840 on the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Vote, please. 3 in favor. Oh, shoot, sorry. Christie, will you read the short title? Sorry.
Ordinance number 840, an ordinance of the city of Valley, Nebraska to adopt the budget statement termed the annual appropriation bill to appropriate sums for the necessary expenses and liabilities of the city for fiscal year 2025, 2026, and to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect.
All right, now vote, please. Sorry about that. 3 in favor, 1 against. Is there a desire to suspend the rules and pass the ordinance on the second and third readings?
So moved.
Second.
Vote, please. 3 in favor, 1 against. All right, number 15, resolution 2025-35, approval of setting the tax request. Is there any other discussion on this? This is setting the tax request. Can't go over. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-35.
So moved.
Second.
Vote please. 3 in favor, 1 against. All right, number 16, resolution 2025-36, consideration and approval of annual certification of program compliance to Nebraska Board of Public Roads classifications and standards. So this is also the annual certification we have to do for the roads. Any questions on this one? Entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-36.
So moved.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor? All right, number 17, 1 and 6 year street plan. Greg, you gonna talk about this?
This is really just on the heels of what you just passed with the compliance for the year, the thing with the state of Nebraska boards and roads and classifications. Part of that is the 1 and 6 year street plan that the city prepares, and actually we prepare it for the city, but we work with the city personnel, public works primarily on what projects they're looking to work on in the upcoming year, and also then start to forecast what those 6 year projects would be in the next upcoming 6 years to start looking for funding sources if those are needed and what those projects might entail. In your packet, then you do have a colored map that shows the street projects proposed for next year. And then again, that is a kind of chicken and egg thing because it's tied to your budget, which we were just talking about now too as well. So basically we do have 4, I'm pulling up the list real quick. 4 projects that are proposed for the 1 year plan, which would be a miscellaneous concrete panel project that we typically will do. Miscellaneous locations throughout the town for any of those kinds of things that need repair or maintenance over the year from any type of damage over the winter or any other activity. The other one would be a concrete paving on West Street, south of Meigs down to either Conduit or the end of the city limit line. And then a third one would, number 3 then was Northwest Street. That's the kind of ring road, as I call it, from Dollar General over to State Street on the outside of Valley Shores. And then 4th is actually we pulled in the Champion Shores development for their interior streets with the phase 1 project. And if that moves forward, that again would be identified on the 1 year street plan concurrent to that development project. So those are the projects identified in the 1 year plan. And again, that would be aligned with whatever the budget requests are and funding is appropriated for those projects. We'll move those forward throughout the course of the year. And then we still have about 5 different locations of 6 year projects. That's something that I think we our office kind of goes in a little bit of a cycle that we'll kind of, 1 year we'll spend a little bit more time developing what those 6 year projects would be, kind of work through that over the few years and then really kind of ramp back up and identify these next upcoming 6 year projects. So it's something that will be probably next year, we'll have a larger list of 6 year projects that would be on the map to start looking for, because we just did a bunch, and of course last year we had the bond to do that, kind of accelerate some of those projects as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
The only thing I have to state is on Southwest Street. Right now, a third of that street is already paved. And if you do from Meigs to Condren, you're taking another third, but you're still leaving a third of it gravel road. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if we want to push that back until we can do the whole thing, that's fine. Go a year or 2 down the road, but do the whole thing at one time.
Yep, you and I had a conversation on that, so it's kind of your guys' decision on what you guys want to do on this 1 year street plan. So
This is what I'm suggesting to my council members. It needs to be done at one time, and I don't care if it's this year, next year, 5 years down the road, whatever. It is, it is. It's been a gravel road this long.
correct, yep. Tim might correct me, but I think this is 1 of 2 left.
Mhm.
And then the other one would be Valley Street, which is right at the base of the tower, which is kind of an alley street kind of combination. It's a unique area there. So that's one thing that has done here in the last few years, is that we've gotten rid of some of the gravel roads to where they don't have to have some of that type of equipment to maintain those kinds of features of roadway surfaces.
Greg, that's one of the things we talked about in council meeting, was as we were looking at the spending, we were reallocating spend to some of those items, and it just wanted to defer, obviously, to you and see if that made sense, but if it does make sense, we want to include that.
Sure.
I think that is only logical.
Yep.
So,
Yep, and, yep, Miss Linda, sorry I wasn't able to go last Thursday, I had some kids' activities, so.
I understand.
If, that's something we can definitely look at. And again, we kind of started at the 30,000 foot level on all these projects, to where we're throwing not necessarily darts, but large, not doing detailed estimates. We don't have any design work done or anything like that. And just to give you an example, there's 2 Douglas County projects that were almost about 60 to 70% of what that budgeted amount was that they thought, once they actually did it, designed it, built it, all that kind of thing, those came in well on their budget. So again, even if we assign the budget where it's at, and we start looking at it, and we can do more, and we have funding for it with, and I stay in the, out of the doghouse with Ms. Lori on the treasurer side, and we'll gladly look at those projects moving forward.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Brent? Okay, we'll open this public hearing. Anyone from the public want to speak on the 1 and 6 year street plan? Okay, we'll close that public hearing. Oh, yeah. Yep. Come on up real quick. Yep.
Steve. So I'm Pete Katsampis, and I live at 3904 North 265th Court, which is the east side of Mount Landing. And so I just had a question, or wanted to make a comment about the street. It's really 264th and Meeks, and then Wrightsmith and Meeks. Those are a lot of development going on in there, and we got a lot of traffic with Menards and 3M, and it's really tough getting in and out of there with all the semis, trying to get up that hill and everything. So I didn't know if there was any plans for doing anything in that little section there. So.
I don't think we have any plans, but I don't, Greg, in any of those couple developments that are over there, is there any adjustments to the streets planned as part of those developments?
Right now, no. It would be what you said, 264th and Meeks.
264th and Meeks, that little turn there. And then Wrightsmith and Meeks coming in the other way. And so that it gets pretty jammed up with semis and other just regular traffic. So it's just a tough, and we got a bunch of new residential and retail going in right there, so.
And you've got the high school too.
Well, the games, those are one-off events that you deal with, but just the regular traffic in there, getting over to Love's and all that's getting a little crazy, so.
Yep, I think like that.
I don't know if anybody that doesn't live on the east side of Mallard cares, but that's the main road.
Well, and it's gonna be traveled more, obviously, when
Yeah.
there's developments and things coming in on both sides, so.
Wasn't there a traffic study done?
None of that one.
For Valley Land.
I thought it was specifically the road that went in front of Menards, that we were getting like a grant or something for like a traffic study, we're pending on it.
That's the 4-way stop by 3M.
Yeah, correct, 270th and Meeks, the 4-way stop on the southwest corner of 3M.
Okay. Did we get that study back?
That one's still in process. I think it was it's under MAPPA, and I believe it was gonna take them up to a year to get it finalized, and we're probably a month or two into that timeframe, so it'll be a few months, probably after the first year, I suspect, starting to see something on that.
Anyone else from the public? All right, we close the public hearing. I would entertain a motion to approve the 1 and 6 year street plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor? Okay, number 18, commercial design standards in designated commercial areas, consideration of approval to amend existing sections of the City of Valley zoning regulations related to commercial design standards in designated commercial areas. Are you reviewing this?
I'm gonna pitch it for Ruin since his departure. I picked this one up a little bit. I was involved with Miss Andrea as well. I'm gonna probably put it just in layman's terms that there was kind of a request when they were studying all of this with Ruin and everybody else, was that if you build a structure, probably 2 years ago, I believe, is when we looked to assign design standards to all of the commercial properties. And so then there was a idea that was contemplated so that if you're building a building, multiple buildings on the same lot, that if the first building you can see from the street, you want it to look nice and have design standards. Then if you built a second one behind it, if you had a multiple structure type scenario, that those would necessarily not require as high of design standards of the architectural features, the brick, stone, glass, those kinds of amenities on the structures, because they aren't visibly apparent that you can't see from the road. So what this ordinance does creates kind of those two classes, and then also we had prepared a map that defines all of the major roads in town that are basically, think of the section line roads, if you will, or Richmond and Old Highway 275, those kind of features that are arterial or collector in nature that are the tier one, if you will, of the design standards. And then if you have a lot that where you are on a local interior road of a development, then you could have this, call it lesser design standards. There's still design standards that are stone, brick, and glass, and those kind of features on the building. So they're still going to have some amenities that still make them look nice, since that they're as apparent from those main thoroughfares throughout the community to visually see. And then, of course, that does reduce some construction costs that potentially helps any new businesses or whatever businesses that want to move here, grow here, whatever, those kind of things to help accelerate those in the community. So that's kind of my overview summary. If you have any questions, I'm happy to defer.
I have a couple of questions for you. So what if a lot's in the highway overlay district?
Basically, I believe we got rid of the highway overlay district for commercial properties. The industrial properties, these still do not apply to.
And Rune is, you're here for Rune. How did Rune feel about this? Did he like it or dislike it or what?
Well,
If you can say.
well, no, I think he said that he'll enforce whatever the city council wants to do. It does make a little, I wouldn't call it more work, but it's like, where's the property at? How is it situated? And then what design standards does it apply to? A lot of those factors we have to do anyways of where's the property? What's the zoning? What's the design standards that apply to the property? So there's still the same hoops to jump. It's just that you might at one point pivot from tier one to tier two for architectural features on the outside of the building.
John, is this what you presented to the planning commission?
Yeah, for some color commentary, when we were on council maybe 2.5 years ago, we applied the highway overlay district across the entire city as just an easy way to handle design standards, knowing there was growth coming. As we looked at that, and as I talked to Rune and Greg and other business owners, it really seemed like it was impeding some of the development that would benefit small business. And so I've been a property owner here in town for going on 18 years. And my business partner owns property here in town. His property isn't impacted by this in any way, shape, or form. The property that I'm looking at or that I own is ag in nature, so it's not impacted by this in any form. But I'll be abstaining from this since I helped design it. I think it stands on its own merits just from the standpoint of if we look at it from a small business perspective, and I think there's a couple of people from planning who heard from some of these other small businesses that showed up that are going to speak tonight. But we've got a lot of small business energy in this community. And that small business energy needs places to go, it needs places to rent, it needs places to buy. And this is a way to maintain a high level of design standards on those arterial and collector streets, thanks for the language on that, Greg, that are seen from the road. So most of the major streets in town, but then also it then allows for that lesser architectural standard to be applied to buildings that aren't seen from any of the major roads. And so those buildings can be built to a lesser standard. Therefore, we've estimated there's a 15 to 20% cost savings in some of those that can be directly translated to the small businesses. And everybody, when we talked, I know that Kyle, you're going to speak on behalf of the board or the planning commission and talk a little bit about some of the folks that were there. I know this was a unanimous yes from the planning commission. But from that standpoint, there's the landscapers, the lawn care folks, the plumbers, the electricians, GM in construction was there. There's other folks in other industries that really support all of us, whether we live in the different areas across the valley or if these folks are doing service work elsewhere. So this is a really logical step that I think is an easy yes to promote small business.
So although this doesn't benefit your business right now or your partners, it will.
We haven't opened the public hearing yet, so give us just a second here. Council, any other comments or questions? Okay, I will open the public hearing. Now you can come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Although this doesn't
Come up
benefit
to
you
the
right now,
podium.
it will benefit you and your partner in the
Come up
future.
to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
That's right.
We'll just leave that one out because we can't come up to the podium. So anyone else like to speak?
My name is Beth Roy. I live in Valley. This doesn't benefit you and your business partner right now. However, it will in the future, correct? That's why you proposed this.
No, so let me be clear, the piece of property that he owns is in a highway overlay district that was the former highway overlay district. That would be primary, and so all of his buildings would have to conform to the existing standard, what Greg described as kind of a tier one. Any of the property that is owned, so that's in that Falcon Ridge. Are you familiar with Falcon Ridge Business Park? Okay, so that's in that Falcon Ridge area. And then the other piece of property is agro-residential. It borders 252nd Street, which would be required to follow these standards. And so there's no benefit in anything, even if that were to be developed down the road. When you're looking at that, the major thoroughfares are protected. His work needs to conform to the standards. We're not saying eliminate the standards. We're saying you need to follow these standards. Does that make sense?
You're lessening the standards.
We're changing, there's now a tier two, I think we're
So you're
calling it a
lessening
class two standard. So that would even apply to, let's say, in the new development just north of where the high school built their field. The ones along Mix Street would need to apply, or would need to adhere to the tier one standard. Those buildings that are
So you're
back,
lessening the standards from tier one to tier two.
correct, so those ones in the back would not need to adhere to that standard. Am I saying that? Correct.
And you said you are abstaining from this, right? Because you have
Yes.
some, okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak in the public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Kyle Anderson, 5409 North 284th Circle. And as John mentioned, I'm here representing the Planning Commission, not the entire commission, but just to share thoughts. I was prepared, Greg, to talk what you talked about, knowing if Arun was going to be here. I just felt like it was appropriate to have some representation. As John mentioned, the Planning Commission voted unanimously for this change. And not the only thing I'll add, I won't get into too many details of it, but I do think it's very appropriate for a city that's growing as Valley is to be able to adapt, to really fine tune those development standards for commercial developments based on what we're hearing from the developers, the people that want to start small businesses that don't have any place to go that's affordable. We want to be able to accommodate them and not have them pushed out to adjacent communities. But at the same token, we don't want to drop our design standards to a point that is unacceptable to us. And I think that that's the balance that was reached through these revisions, was to still maintain those very high standards based on the frontage, the front doors, our busiest streets that you see in the community, but then relaxing those standards a little bit, but certainly not getting rid of them completely on the side streets and for those that have screening in front of them. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you can. Again, I won't speak for the entire planning commission, but I'd be happy to.
And I know I was at some of those planning commissions. There was a few different business owners that came and spoke in support of this, right?
Yes, there were. And I would say that there was even a couple of business owners that kind of pushed hard to get rid of standards completely. And I think that we pushed back pretty hard on that we do not want to go to that point. We still want to maintain something. We all want to have a community we're very proud of, and that we love the way that it looks, not only for the residents, but for the business owners as well.
Any questions? Let's see, is there any questions?
Thank you.
Steve Phillips, 26835 Taylor Street. Just more than anything else, as a small business owner, somebody that would look at potential development and applaud the commission for setting standards of this nature and putting things in place for a community that's growing. So I agree with this and would endorse it fully.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the public hearing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. That I would entertain a motion to introduce ordinance 841.
This is just my opinion, I'd just like maybe to get with John, where's he at? Right there, and just maybe some of the other, planning board guys, and, just discuss it. I mean, I just need another month. I'm not saying yes or no. I would just, like to run some more questions by you guys. That's just my 2 cents. See you, John. Is it Kyle? Okay, sorry. Kyle.
That's all right, Jim.
Sorry.
I knew you were looking.
All right, yeah.
And
But,
we do live stream those too, so you can go back and look at the couple different meetings.
okay,
See
perfect.
everyone who spoke.
Thank you. But that's just me.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I would again entertain a motion to introduce ordinance 841 or entertain a different motion if you would like to go a different direction.
I just have a little bit more discovery I want to have on this, so I would, line up with Mr. Lewis, and I would like to make a motion to table this another month.
Second.
Vote please. 3 in favor, 1 abstain.
Thank you.
All right, people service update.
Good evening, Mike and here, People Service Inc., 207 East Conner Street. August started out quiet. Water usage is down, which obviously makes all of our complaints go down, which makes the water main stop and stuff like that. So it started out good, and then we had that storm during Valley Days, which took out 17 of our 37 lift stations and the water plant. So we spent the next 3 days taking care of that. Generators ran good, so that's awesome, because where we did have generators, they fired right up and kept everything running. So that was good. Meter reading, we're improving once again by a couple percent every single month. We are running into dead batteries now, so that's another thing on top of this, because 10 years ago when we started this whole program, those batteries only last 10 years. So on top of that, we're also dealing with that on replacing some MXUs with the batteries in them. It was past the 50,000 foot level of water plants running great. No issues with that whatsoever. Questions, comments? Really? Nothing? I prepared all month for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, city engineer, Craig.
Good evening. First item on the agenda, we have a water treatment plant. This is for the contractor Erickson Construction that's building the project. They have a progress payment number 8 in the amount of $616,050. Just for a brief overview, that's about 23% of the overall contract. I think I've told you probably last month you'd start seeing walls, which they have one more below ground foundation wall to do. And then, so by the time we get into the October meeting, which is actually, I think, like the 14th, so it's kind of late, we should see the masons there putting up block around the structure. So you'll actually see again a lot more than what we have been working on underground for the last 6 months. So with that, though, we do just recommend the progress payment in that set amount to Erickson's Construction for the work performed over the last month.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-37, action to approve contractor's application for payment number 8 in the amount of $616,050.
So moved.
Second. Vote please. All in favor?
Item B then is that Valley Landing, the sewer, water, and storm sewer with United Utilities and Excavation. Again, this is a progress payment number 4 in the amount of $71,212.74. This is just work performed on sanitary sewer the last month. They are nearing completion of the sanitary sewer and looking to get ready for street paving, which is targeted for early October. So that was start having the streets going, and of course that will accelerate the rest of that development and start seeing more activity on there. But again, we just had a progress payment for them in that set amount.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-38, action to approve contractor's application for payment number 4 in the amount of $71,212.74.
So moved.
Second. Vote please. All in favor?
Item C, then we have the park and plat paving improvements to T construction. Adam Plattsmith has a progress payment number 3, $29,662.35. This is again just progress work that they had done over the last month for that 2 street projects. Ms. Lewis, I did have a conversation with you. I think you were asking about the schedule. They did take about a 2-week break, ended up being with delays over the last 2 months with all the rain delays. They were behind on another project that they had to go work on for a couple weeks. So now they are back as of yesterday working on Platt Street. And again, that's probably it's only 1 block, so it's looking like they're only going to take about 2 weeks. So that will still be done in this fiscal year. So it don't affect the budget for this year or next year moving forward. So having reviewed that, we do recommend progress payment number 3 to the T construction.
Did we, get all of the homeowners' issues solved along Park Street, Park Avenue, whatever it is?
No, we have not. I've given you guys, I sent out some correspondence on the 2 topics there with the drainage on number 1, and then number 2 is the construction equipment also.
If you drive down that road, and I have, I kind of noticed on the east side of Park, it seems elevated a little. So then naturally the water would go to the west side of Park. And those homeowners are going to be the ones suffering that consequence. Why was it done like that?
Basically, if you, in that memo as well as documenting of where did that water go previously? And so that's where we're looking at the big picture. And so then we just shifted that to where it goes previously. And that's where that's cross sloped to the west side that you were asking
But
about.
they've never had standing water issues like that until this.
It's because it sinks into the ground when it's dirt and it doesn't sink in the concrete.
Well, I don't know, something has to be done for those homeowners.
I mean, yeah, the big picture then is there is no storm sewer. A lot of Valley doesn't have storm sewer in general, so there isn't anything to connect to in that vicinity. Like it's quarter-mile away type thing, so it's really not even possible. 1, you can talk about cost, but then 2, you actually talk about elevation as is it possible, and that's where I said it's probably really not possible. So.
I mean, in a big rain, many of the streets flood and there's standing water on a lot of the streets.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but we need to address this somewhat for these homeowners. I don't know if you need to put in better drainage there, do something for them.
We will continue to try to come up with other ideas. That's why I told the 2 property owners.
So you
There are
said
very
you sent
limited.
everyone the memo, right?
Yeah.
I think the easiest thing would be to just respond to Greg with your ideas on how they can help look at it again. Because I mean, he researched it and provided the memo with the information. So that would be the best way to handle
When I
it.
get back from the last, I'll do that.
Can I come with you? No.
No.
Sounds fun.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-39. Action to approve contractor's application for payment number 3 in the amount of $29,662.35. Vote please. All in favor?
Just some other, miscellaneous updates. Championship's final plat, that's something we're working on for planning commission. Guys, owns property just on the north side of the YMCA off of Twin River Circle. Has got some replat type stuff that they're looking at doing here in the next, won't be on the September meeting. I believe it'll be on the October meeting that we're working on as well. And then we are still trying to wrap up the Valley Lakes business park that's 264th and Meigs on that industrial development with some sanitary sewer that they're really getting really close to that. So I think on the October meeting, we'd probably be ready to get that one closed out as well. So that's some of the miscellaneous stuff that we've had going on as well. So any other questions? I can answer.
I was asked Mr. Farnham if I could ask you like on this year with the water main replacements.
Oh, sure.
If you had some of those like areas that, just so the city would know.
We, basically with the previous city administrator, Cameron, we had sat down in July, I believe, when we were starting to kind of kick the tires on this, and nothing has been developed yet permanent. So I guess let's just caveat on that is that we'd start to look at some risks and ideas and parameters on what we were looking to do. One, for water quality, and then two is what's the risk of what's it been costing the city? Has it been failing? Has it been breaking? Those kind of things. And working with Mike and People Service on that for all of the records. So one area that we're targeting is west of West Street, which again, it's hard to say, and then south of the park down to Waring. So it's Alexander, Whittingham, and Waring. That is one of them. Alexander, Whittingham, Waring. Oh, Charles. Charles.
I didn't say that.
There we go. Yeah, there's one. And so you take those 4 streets, West Street over to Lakewood would be one pocket that we're going to look to potentially redo and we'll target, assess. We haven't done all of this yet. That's where we historically, my knowledge, has had the most groundwater type complaints in that vicinity. And then the other critical item that has been more of a failure topic has been Richmond Road water main, say from Walmart, or not Walmart, Walnut at Casey's down to near the old Shell station there at Center Street is kind of the other topic. And that's those segments were what we just did a very high level estimate on. That was what was in the budget. So again, actually, I don't have the footage with me. I could get that for you if you wanted it. But those were the ones that we start from. But again, that's not set in stone. We'd say where else have we had issues with in the last couple of years and start working in those records and those kind of things. Does that make sense? Answer your question?
No, thank you. Sure.
Just another reminder to point out, since you brought that up, if you have distilled water, you need to report it, because these reports are what we're using to determine where we're.
Very good point. Yep,
So
that's correct.
that is why we need to actually report to the city so that we have that documentation.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions for Ken?
Thank you.
City Attorney?
Thanks, Greg.
Not too much to report. Spent a fair amount of time on things related to Champion Shores with the redevelopment plan and visiting with Mike Bacon, the city's TIF expert, about some of the TIF issues, and then just the normal stuff. Andrea, when you weren't on vacation, do you remember doing that? Okay. It's good to do that. That's all I got.
Any questions for Jen? Okay. All right, mayor's report, just a couple of things. The core and the main antenna installation. The base station is scheduled to ship on, it was scheduled to ship on 9/5, and then installation the week of 9/22. And then another thing, you want to read it or do you want me to read it? Okay. So the other thing, we are going to recognize Officer Spilneck tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. We received this letter from Douglas County Attorney Donald Klein, so I'm just going to read it for everyone. Dear Chief Martinez, I'm writing to commend Officer Brian Spilneck and your department with locating without incident the capture of a suspect. The suspect is wanted in Washington, Sarpy, and Lancaster counties and avoiding summons service. Your officer assisted with investigator Charles Venditti in apprehending the suspect. I am grateful for Officer Spilneck's dedication and commitment to serving our community. I believe this incident demonstrates Officer Spilneck's and your department's strong commitment to upholding the law and protecting the public. I hope this letter will be placed in his personnel file as a testament to his exemplary service. Sincerely, Donald Klein. So, thank you very much, Officer Spilneck.
Thank you.
Officer Spilnick is one of our new officers. He's been with us since June. He comes with 20 years of law enforcement background from Washington County. He's been a great asset to our department in finding individuals that have been on the run. This gentleman that they found had been on the run for about a year, and we got him out of our community, and that's the dedication that we have here at the police department. So I just wanted to give some background on Officer Spilnick.
If I could just say one thing, that all came together from communication from an outside agency. Officer Kelly was my shift leader that night, or working with me. It was team effort, so.
And then he's trying to hide from you back there.
A lot of pieces to put that together.
Great, thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission, September 16th at 4:30. We will not be having any meetings related to Valley Days next week, even though it's on there. And then DCUS Homecoming Parade, September 19th. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve or to adjourn a regular council meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Vote please. All in favor? Okay, then we will move on to the CDA meeting. Good, okay, we will call the Community Development Agency meeting to order. Chrissy, will you do roll call, please?
John?
Here.
Melanie?
Here.
Jake?
Here.
Linda?
Here.
We have quorum.
I approve the publication in front of me. Visitors correspondence. Anyone desiring to speak on any item or issue not on the agenda or any item on the agenda that does not include a public hearing may do so, but shall be limited to 3 minutes. Persons should identify themselves by name and address. Person speaking should not expect the council to engage in back and forth dialogue regarding their comments unless an agenda item includes a public hearing. No person may speak during the business portion of the meeting, provided however, persons speaking during a public hearing are limited to between 5 and 20 minutes. The public is advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the council chamber, and one copy of all reproducible written material to be discussed at this meeting is available for examination. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this meeting? A motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Vote please. All in favor? Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor? Okay, so the item we have on the agenda tonight, resolution CDA 2025-02, consideration and action to recommend the Champion Shores redevelopment plan to the Planning Commission. Jeff or Andrea, just talk about the process, please.
Sure. So the redeveloper Champion Shores has submitted to the CDA a redevelopment plan. At this time, pursuant to statute, the CDA is tasked with submitting this plan then to the Planning Commission for Planning Commission's review as to whether or not the redevelopment plan complies with the city's plan as a whole, the city's comprehensive development plan. That's Planning Commission's role. So the CDA tonight is simply accepting the redevelopment plan and referring that to Planning Commission for their consideration at their meeting next Tuesday. So that's what this resolution does here tonight. And I know the developer's attorney is here if you guys have any questions. But really, this is a procedural step along the way. The redevelopment plan will come back to you guys with a public hearing and all of that. So you will have a chance to review it and make your recommendations then on that plan.
And Andrea, at planning next week, that's also a public hearing.
Yes, so we have published for, and there will be a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission next week. That's all pursuant to statute. So people get to have their say on that redevelopment plan. And then, like I said, Planning Commission's role is strictly to determine whether or not that plan is in compliance with the city's comprehensive development plan. That's their role. So you guys will certainly get another look at it, and you'll have a public hearing in front of the council to make your recommendations as well. So that's what we're doing here. And
So just to clarify again, we are not voting on the actual redevelopment plan. We are voting on whether or not the redevelopment plan goes to Planning Commission for the public hearing and for consideration.
Correct.
Do we have any questions? Okay. I entertain a motion to approve resolution CDA 2025-02, action to recommend the Champion Shores redevelopment plan to the Planning Commission.
I'll make note that we've heard from a number of people at Flatwater and have certainly taken note of that. I think it's going to be good to put this in front of planning to see what planning's feedback is so that we can try to make some of those changes. There's a lot of recommendations from a lot of people at Flatwater. And so I think, I don't know if the other council members received those same emails, but I think it's good feedback.
And those were all the emails in the visitor correspondence at the regular meeting.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. So entertain a motion to approve resolution CDA 2025-02, action to recommend Champion Shores redevelopment plan to the Planning Commission.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor? All right, and entertain a motion to adjourn. One second.
Second.
Vote please. All in favor?
Left his kid's birthday party for that. You just never know.
Part of the job, though.
It is.
Oh.
So I got- you gotta answer the question.